driving this beautiful car and she's upset. So the understanding of both is a problem, and you don't talk to your mom about the problem in your home because she's going to side with you. She raised you.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Marilyn C. Saunders is talking to us this afternoon, counseling psychologist and author of Build to Last, a Marriage Blueprint, as well as companion book. And when we get back, we'll be taking your voice notes as well as your calls, and also just to get to tap into finances. Big issue in a marriage. We'll be back.
Yes.
It's time for news.
Good afternoon, I'm Kulufelo Defo. In the headlines this hour, Minister of International Relations and Cooperation Ronald Lamola says fragmentation of the global economy is a real concern. He has warned that increases in trade barriers will hit growth around the world and add to global inflation. Kidnappings increased by almost 16% in Gauteng between January and March this year. This is contained in the fourth quarter crime statistics for the 2024-25 financial year. And Defence Counsel Charles Mnisi has concluded the cross-examination of the lead investigator in the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial. Full updates at 2.
You are listening to The Full Circle.
And we're talking about marriage. Well, today our topic is on our channel, which is #FamilyMeeting. We're talking about what is it that makes a marriage work? The art of a successful marriage. Is there a playbook? And we are in conversation with Dr. Marilyn C. Saunders, who's a counseling psychologist and author of Build to Last, a Marriage Blueprint, as well as a companion book. And just like I promised, I think let's get to our voice notes so that Doc can also respond or react to some of the issues that you'd like to highlight.
Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Bertha, I've been married for 33 years, and to tell you the truth, the institution of marriage does not come with a handbook or a user's manual. In a real sense, each family or each couple writes their own user's manual or handbook. And it will be very unfair of me to say, you do 1, 2, 3, and then your marriage will work, because each and every couple is unique. They have their own way of doing things, unique individuals. And although there are common characteristics that may work, each couple needs to find out how to make the marriage last. Lazarus Bombela.
Hello. I do not think there is a formula that we can say it is foolproof. This is a formula for a good marriage. Not anymore. I was married for 20-something years. I've been a widow for 18 years now. And I'm content. At this point in my life, I don't want to get married anymore. The rate at which people are divorcing, marriages are ending in divorce. People are killing other people. People come into marriages with different expectations and intentions. It's not working anymore. For those who have never been married, let them try. But for me, it's a no-no. Thank you.
Afternoon, Sisi Bertha. Sisi Bertha, I understand the key to a successful marriage is communication. But in the absence of positive tolerance, communication will never work. I can tell you, I can communicate to you that me, I've got a weakness of wetting my bed, wetting my blankets at night. As long as you are not going to tolerate that positively, there is no marriage. So communication and positive tolerance are key to a successful marriage. I'm running 30 years now with my boo. She's old. We start Dube. We're up to 30 years now, but it's like we met yesterday. Communication and positive tolerance. Norman from Brixton.
That's interesting. Some people just seem to find it quite, I don't know, they navigate through marriage quite easily. We'll come back, Doc. So just before you react, let me also just pose this question so that I think you can then, give us insight. Dealing with finances in the midst of our economy and unemployment, how does this affect our marriages as well as dealing with mental health within the union?
Yes, I just love all your questions. First of all, before you get married, you need to choose a contract. I know they're going to talk about marriage regimes later, so maybe from a psychological and family perspective, I'll bring it up because it's important in finance, is that you need to know which one will fit your marriage. If you're going to do antenatal without accrual, a traditional woman is not going to be able to stay with that for long. It's not sustainable because without accrual means he doesn't have to tell you what he's doing with his money. He doesn't have to tell you. It's good if you can do that. So antenatal without accrual is your money stays yours and your expenses is yours and mine is mine, but our combined expenses that we're using in the house and with the children, we're going to work that out. So say, for example, the husband goes or the wife buys the second car, and the husband thinks, well, I needed some money for my business. There is no cohesion or agreement or negotiation with some couples. And so if it's with accrual, there is more accountability because we need to know what the other one is doing. In community of property, that's even worse. A man is not supposed to make debt, or a woman is not supposed to make debt without telling the other because they're going to inherit it. In divorce, you'll have to pay for take responsibility for his debt. In death, she'll have to pay for his. So it's very complex, and it's great that you're getting that later because you need to define what will work in your marriage. That also determines how the finances is going to work. Now, the modern marriage, that is the challenges that they have now, is that because of the BEEE, most women are in middle management and upper management because they get that first priority to have a good job. And the men are standing in the queue and waiting, and some of them lose jobs. It's now adjusting to the wife being a breadwinner. And if you were raised traditionally, then having the wife as a breadwinner is a huge issue if it's not discussed properly. Because now often the man would say, but you're the boss of the house, right? Oh, you make decisions, you're the boss, you just do what you want to do. That is where the conflict happens, is understanding the new role within the home. Is traditionally the men, it's easy. So traditional marriages were easy because the man used to go work and the wife knew what her roles were. Mm. Now the woman has a very challenging job at work, huge responsibility at work, and then the traditional man will say, I still need you to do 1, 2, 3. No, you're not going to get someone to come and cook. You need to cook.
Yeah. We're going to take a small break, but before we do, I think from the voice notes, we got a very common thread where I think 2 of the voice notes said there's no particular formula. And then the other lady who said her partner passed away and she'd been married for quite a long time. She would not want to marry anymore because she's seen that marriage just doesn't seem to work. When we get back, we'll touch on, what makes a good marriage, what can build or break a marriage, number one. And also, what are the key qualities you need to have as a partner or in a partnership for a marriage to work. Let's take a small break. We'll be back.
EFC is live this Thursday. The indestructible champion Zakir Badat descends from the Wild Mountains to defend his welterweight title against Nigeria's electrifying kickboxing champion Segun Ogunaike. Plus, Timnan Lawuli takes on Sibusiso Suvendila, and undefeated Kevin Pretorius steps up to challenge Oswaldo Benedito. EFC 124 live from the World Sports Betting Arena. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
It's a game of two halves, represented by two national flags. And both nations are chasing victory to bring joy to their citizens. This is more than just an international friendly. It is the Southern African Derby. Mzansi's Bafana Bafana face the Mambas of Mars. Catch the incredible action of African football. South Africa versus Mozambique on Tuesday, 10 June at 7 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
This Youth Month, SAFM celebrates the spirit, power, and potential of young South Africans. Join us as we dive into conversations that matter, from innovation to education and skills for the changing world. Empowering youth for meaningful economic participation. Because at SAFM, we're not just talking, we're leading the conversations that move us. Bertha Charuma on SAFM.
And it is Family Meeting, talking to Dr. Marilyn C. Saunders, counseling psychologist and author of Built to Last Marriage Blueprint, as well as a companion book. Doc, welcome back. So just before we took a break, I wanted to find out who you choose. Apparently who you choose can actually build or break you. And that can also determine a good marriage or a non-existent marriage, or a marriage that doesn't last at all.
Yes. Further, I just want to agree with Lazarus. You have to have your own blueprint. So the book is about the architectural map. It's a blueprint for yourself. You read the book and there's a workbook that you work through for yourself, what will work for you. There's options, what will work for you. And so I cannot say that I need to be like my sister or my brother. Our marriage should be like that, because they're married to different people and there's different backgrounds and the way you were raised, as I've mentioned. So yes, you need your own blueprint. Some couples lack empathy, and another couple do not lack empathy. So there's areas that you need to work on that will grow. But like you were asking, what are the key qualities? One of the key is a lot, but one of the key qualities is selflessness and sacrifice. If you want to push the long haul and have a long-term marriage, both of you need to be able to compromise, negotiate, and sacrifice at times. Okay, I know you've done your MBA. Can you take a break? Then I can do mine. I would like to be a teacher. You're a lawyer. Do you mind if I go? And you understand there's some sacrifices that we need to make for the children, what's in the best interest of the children, and also sacrifices that we need to make for our partners to grow. And what I've noticed is some women that are divorced look very happy. They do. They're divorced and they're so happy because there was a husband that was withholding them from growing and reaching their full potential. Now they don't have to ask permission. Oh no, you can't go to Cape Town on that conference. You know, it's not possible. And I need that conference for a certificate or something. But now they can do that.
Yeah.
But and so that is one of the key to be able to forgive.
I think we will have to also just direct some of our listeners, if they want more information, to your site, Dr. Saunders. Your site where they can go for more information? marilynsaunders.co.za. Fantastic stuff. Dr. Marilyn Saunders chatting to us this afternoon. Thank you so much for making time. And she's a counseling psychologist and author of Built to Last Marriage Blueprint, as well as a companion book. Look, I think it all differs, different strokes for different folks, and you just need to know where you're going. But one thing I've taken out of our conversation is respect, and being selfless. Those two issues are key. Thank you so much, Dr. Saunders. And bye-bye for now.
They say sharing is caring, but not in football. Bafana Bafana and Club M refuse to share points. They're both hunting for vital points. This is the Hollywood Bets South Africa 2025. Catch the spectacular action of Southern African football. South Africa versus Mauritius. This Tuesday, 10 June at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Planet Earth, third planet from the sun. A cool place within the solar system where you can pause and take a deep breath without your lungs exploding. Home to an amazing array of wildlife and amazing landscapes that will leave you breathless either through wonder or fear. For humans, it's a place they call home, the only one that they have now. Team Surai follows a dedicated group of individuals dedicated to protecting the planet. Their mission: to encourage viewers to take concrete steps to protect the Earth. Catch Team Surai Thursdays at 6 p.m. S3, open up.
They say sharing is caring, but not in football. Bafana Bafana and Club M refuse to share points. They're both hunting for vital points. This is the Hollywood Bets South Africa 2025. Catch the spectacular action of Southern African football. South Africa versus Mauritius. This Tuesday, 10 June at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
You are listening to The Full Circle.
And coming up next, University of Pretoria launching the first ever Global Volunteer Index. We are chatting to Professor Samuel Manda from the University of Pretoria Department of Statistics and Project Director. And just to give you the backdrop, the Global Volunteering Index will provide a timely and standardized measurement of volunteerism across its critical multiple aspects, and will be valuable analytical tool to assess people's voluntary contributions to the Sustainable Development Goals. But Prof will be able to, to unpack further and maybe give us more insight. Professor, good afternoon and welcome to the Full Circle.
Hi, ma'am. Yes, how are you doing? I am okay. And how are you doing there?
I am doing just fantastic. Maybe let's start off right from the beginning to make us understand what this is all about, the Global Volunteering Index. Give us just maybe if you could just give us a picture.
Yeah, so I think as we know that people volunteer in their time to help friends, to help in communities, to help in many sorts of in places, and so this is going to provide a tool on how to assess or to quantify, their contribution to development, well-being of people. So it is going to provide the empirical data to actually give us how much they contribute to people who are in need of help in terms of health, people who are disadvantaged, people who are in need of help. So that would be quantified through a DVI. So that is called, so it is a shortened version of the Global Volunteer Index. So it's called DVI. So that's more, I think the essence of this work. Yeah.
We know that the University of Pretoria is leading the development of the framework and methodology of this particular index.
Yeah.
What exactly does that entail, and how will it contribute to the 2026 State of the World's Volunteerism Report?
So I think every 4 years, UN and the UNV, which is the United Volunteer branch of UN, they would produce a report on the state of volunteerism in the world. So they would always have a theme about it. But the one for 2025, the theme is mainly on measurement. So as part of that, there are some other people who are going to contribute in terms of the coverage, in terms of the extent. Yeah. But for us, we are going to produce a tool, a framework on how other countries or how member states of UN, they can compute the amount or the work of volunteerism in its all aspects, because it is not only the number of people who are volunteering, or it's not only the number of the hours, but there's more than that in terms of the health of people who volunteer, in terms of the impact they have in terms of communities. So that too would be more or less like a benchmark or something that would be comparable in terms of that every country would have the same type of measurement. So it's like the way people have got a cell phone. So a cell phone that you have here would do the same type of work with another cell phone that somebody has in Japan. So if it's say Samsung, it is the same one. So once you take a picture, it will be more or less the same picture. So what we are saying is for each country to produce the amount of contributions that volunteers do, there must be a tool that they can use so that we measure apples and apples, not apples instead to grapes. So this will be a tool that people can use or adapt. And that will be part and parcel of SWVR, yes.
You described the index as valuable, number one, and it's a valuable tool for measuring volunteer work's impact on individuals and communities. What kind of data will be collected, and how will this information help shape policies or development strategies?
So I think it's obvious, because in volunteerism it can be measured by only one variable, so like how happy you are, or did you gain anything from it. So that part, it is abstract. So if you are able to quantify it in a number of ways, and then you can tell state governments that the work of volunteerism, just for example, is helping people who are in need, say people who are old, people in the old homes, to have a better life. And having a better life, that is part and parcel of SDG. And if you are able to quantify it, where say media is like you guys, let's say managers, people who have got some money in terms of the investment, if they can invest it in terms of communities that they can come together to do something for their own good as a community. Maybe that would do impact on the poverty. Maybe then that type of impact on the poverty in that community is a part of the SDGs. So there's a lot of things. So, and sometimes people who are old, maybe they would want to go and make friends. And by doing that, they will go to volunteer. And then there they will meet people whom they can come together as friends. Then it makes their life better, and they can even live longer. And that part, it is part of the SDGs.
And you've partnered not only with the United Nations volunteers, but also with institutions like Northumbria University and the International Labour Organization. How important then is this global collaboration, particularly with researchers from the Global South?
I think one thing is really in terms of the combination that that if we are given the chance, as an institution which has been there for long, which has done science for a long time, so this is trying to enhance our stature in terms of that we are able to articulate the science that we learn in class, the research that we do, that we publish, but now we are making it into it looks more applicable, that it can solve some of the problems that we face. and being able to collaborate with the other institutions, like the one in the UK, that means we can learn from them in terms of how they do things, and then they can learn from us. So it is a win-win situation. And in terms of the ILO, that is another UN body. So having them with us, that means obviously we need to do our work very well so that they can say buy in and they can come back to us. So that is like one way of us to link into the future, to have another layer, say of collaboration with a UN body. So that is good for us at UP to have that collaboration.
And looking ahead, what are some of the expected outcomes or changes that you hope the Global Volunteer Index will inspire, both in terms of academic research and on-the-ground volunteerism efforts worldwide?
I think one thing that would be like let's say a byproduct is if you have got data and you are able to measure it and you are able to show what is the extent of people who volunteer, what is the extent of their contributions, that means you are able to invite, to impress the government to invest more in terms of the programs that would make the work of volunteering better. They would invest in terms to attract more volunteers, and it would make you and me to actually go to volunteer, because now we have seen how it impacts on people and on communities. And so then obviously the media will be able to understand what are the impacts of volunteer work. So those are some of the byproducts that will come from there.
And just lastly, apart from the research itself and the findings, if someone is listening to you and I right now and they would like to be part and parcel, or they would like to volunteer themselves, is there a process? Is there somewhere where they go?
Yes, I think here, I think there is a UN office in Pretoria. And so those ones are there to promote volunteer work. So people can Google or search UNV Pretoria. There is an office, then there is an office of UNDP, and all these are a part and parcel of this type of work. So if people are interested, they can search UNDP SA office, and in there they will see links into volunteer work or volunteer branch. And so even now people can Google it all on their phone. They can Google UN volunteers, and then there they'll find a website, and there is the link information, and they can put their names there. Then now they can allocate them to where there's need for them to volunteer.
That's Professor Samuel Manda chatting to us this afternoon from the University of Pretoria, Department of Statistics and Project Director. And once again, if you'd like more information, you go to www.unv.org, or otherwise you can just Google UN volunteers and you will find a section there, and also specify most probably what work you are more interested in as a volunteer. Thank you so much, Professor, and I would like to be a volunteer. Maybe I should just give this a try.
And in fact, tomorrow can go, because tomorrow, no, not tomorrow, but maybe on Sunday, maybe go to church, and maybe they can clean the church, or you can put some chairs in front of the pastor. That will never work.
Prof, that would be a good start. That's a very easy way to start. Thank you so much, and have yourself a good one.
Bye. Thanks so much for the opportunity to talk to you. Thank you.
Bye-bye for now. Still to come on the other side of the hour, that will be after 2. We've got a Legal Corner, #Legal Corner. Can you change your marriage regime in South Africa? We'll be speaking to Mary Jane Mpahlele, our attorney. And as we approach the hour of 3, it won't be around 3, around about 20 to 3, we will be putting the spotlight on Morabo. And the question is, who is Morabo? It's time for news.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation.
Top stories. The Sawa Walter Sisulu University students out on bail and Robben Island tours suspended for renovations. Good afternoon, I'm Kolofelo, therefore. 5 Walter Sisulu University students have been granted 500 rand bail by the Mthatha Magistrate Court in the Eastern Cape. The students are facing charges of public violence and malicious damage to property. They were arrested yesterday during a confrontation with the police following a protest against the granting of bail to murder suspect Manelisi Mampane. Mampane, who is the university's residence manager, allegedly shot and killed student Sisonke Mbolekwa in April this year. 2 other students were injured. The case has been postponed to the 26th of August this year for further investigation. In other news, kidnappings increased by almost 16% in Gauteng between January and March this year. A total of 88 suspects linked to 62 kidnapping cases were arrested, while 77 kidnapping victims were rescued during the same period. This is contained in the fourth quarter crime statistics for the 2024-25 financial year, released by Gauteng Police Commissioner Tommy Mtombeni in the provincial legislature in Johannesburg today. He says of the more than 2,000 kidnapping cases sampled, they found that the majority were hijacking and robbery related.
The sexual offences is reduced by 2.1%. We have reduced violent crime by 8.9%. Car hijacking under the above subcategory was reduced by 2.7%. Robbery at residential premises by 6.2%. Robbery at non-residential premises reduced by 25%. However, the cash in transit robberies, truck hijackings have increased by 1 count, of which is translated to 0.4%.
Defense counsel Charles Mnisi has concluded the cross-examination of the lead investigator in the Senzo Meyiwa murder case. However, Mnisi says there are still pending documents he requires from the state. Brigadier Bongani Gininda has been on the stand at the High Court in Pretoria, where 5 men are on trial for the 2014 murder of the Bafana Bafana captain. Mnisi says he is still waiting for the vehicle tracker information of the officers who were present when accused number 1, Moses Bia, was arrested. Mnisi is also waiting for a date when the court can go on inspection in loco of one of the locations Sibia alleges he was assaulted. In other news, Minister of International Relations and Cooperation Ronald Lamola says fragmentation of the global economy is a real concern. He has warned that increases in trade barriers will hit growth around the world and add to global inflation. This as President Donald Trump imposed a 10% universal tariff in April, covering all imports into the U.S. Lamola was addressing the Black Business Annual Summit hosted by the Black Business Council.
With this background in mind, our presidency of the G20 takes place amid a volatile global geopolitical climate, which has contributed to fostering a climate of distrust, thus threatening to unravel progress we have worked hard to address, pressing global challenges like deepening inequality, unemployment, and poverty, amongst others. Addressing these overlapping challenges requires enhanced international cooperation, in particular mobilizing support and resources to tackle the internal disparities driven by the uneven distributional effects of trade and globalization that is critical.
And finally, Robben Island Museum will be suspending all tourist visits to the iconic site for just over 2 months as it undertakes renovations. Robben Island will host delegations from around the world as South Africa becomes the first African country to host the G20 later this year. The renovations are estimated to cost about 60 million rand. Chairperson of the Robben Island Museum, Professor Seth Cooper, says all visitors who booked tickets during the shutdown period will be refunded in full. He says the island needs to be restored to be the standard expected by the World Heritage Organization, UNESCO.
We felt we should take advantage of the winter period to do a shutdown in order to effect these changes that are necessary, long overdue, and required to retain the tangible heritage in the way that UNESCO and all of you want it to be in.
The top story this hour, 5 Walter Sisulu University students have been granted 500 rand bail by the Mthatha Magistrates Court in the Eastern Cape. Headlines at 2:30 for SAFM News. I'm Kolofelo Defo.
Stay on top of all meaningful, top trending stories right here on SAFM. Leading the conversation.
We've upgraded. Our new GIS-linked national address database lets us connect with you better than ever before. By visualizing licensed and unlicensed households nationwide, we can ensure timely communication. Our payment reminders are a crucial tool to help you stay compliant and avoid penalties, empowering you to take proactive steps. Efficient electronic communication helps us collect fees seamlessly, bolstering the SABC's mandate in line with Section 27 of the Broadcasting Act. TV licenses. Pay yours, make a difference.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Bafana are preparing for the World Cup qualifiers with 2 international friendlies against Tanzania on Friday, 6 June, and Mozambique on Tuesday, 10 June 2025 in Polokwane. Both matches will be at the new Peter Mokaba Stadium at 7:30 p.m. The tickets are available at Ticket Pro at 60 Rand for adults, 30 Rand for children under 12, and scholars in uniform. For more details, visit safa.net and Bafana on X.
SAFM invites young people between the ages of 18 to 35 to take over the airwaves this Youth Month. All you have to do is send a WhatsApp voice note or text message to 061 410 4107 or email info@safm.co.za. Tell us which show you'd like to co-host and what youth-focused issues the G20 should incorporate ahead of the summit. And we could be calling you. Terms and conditions apply. You are listening to The Full Circle. Bertha Charuma on SAFM.
When it was just you and me.
It's Shekinah and Back to the Beach. This is the last hour of Full Circle. Legal Corner it is. Can you change your marriage regime in South Africa? We'll get to find out. I'll be speaking to Mary Jane Mpahlele, who is an attorney. So in South Africa, you can change your marital regime from community of property to out of community of property with or without the accrual system by applying to the High Court. And the process involves drafting a post-nuptial agreement and submitting it to the court along with the application, which must demonstrate sound reasons for the change and that no one will be prejudiced. But let me get our guest on the line. Mary Jane, good afternoon and welcome to the show.
Afternoon, lady. Thank you so much for having me and bringing this interesting and useful, important conversation.
It is so important because many of us, we find the person we love, we tie the knot without understanding the implications. So maybe let's start off with asking the most basic questions, which is, can you change a marriage regime in South Africa, and what does that process entail?
Thank you so much. Yes, you can change your marriage regime or your matrimonial regime in South Africa, but it's not as simple as, a form, filling up a form and moving on. It involves making a High Court application in terms of Section 21, subsection 1 of the Matrimonial Property Act. It is usually done by couples who were originally married in community of property. We see it more often in those circumstances, but then they now want to switch to out of community of property, either with or without accrual. So the process will look something like, as you said earlier, drafting a post-nuptial contract and making that application. The application must be made by both parties. You can't do it alone. If you're married in community of property, you can't make it without the other partner. Usually, the one who initiates would make a founding affidavit, and the next one will do a confirmatory affidavit confirming what the other party has stated in their founding affidavit, and confirming that they do have good reasons to make the change or want the change, and that they've given proper notice to creditors, and most importantly, that no one will be prejudiced if the court was to grant the couple's permission to change their matrimonial regime.
And what could be considered as, good rational or good reasons? It's just an example.
Usually, some people get into these matrimonial regimes without, fully understanding the consequences thereof. So the court will look at that. If you were to say to the court that, when I got married, I was 19. I didn't know there was in community and out of community, and I wasn't really aware that in community means that I'm liable for the other person's debt. And some people would, if they want to venture into businesses, risky businesses, they would advance such reasons as to why they want to change their matrimonial regimes. Some would bring even more personal reasons, like the other party has children outside and they want to protect whatever legacy that they are building towards the children who were born of the marriage. So there's a whole range of reasons you can bring. As long as they are sound in the eyes of the court, then you should be fine.
And how does changing the marriage regime impact, your assets, liabilities, and debts that were acquired or, before and after the change?
This is a big one. The change only affects things from the date of the court, when the court grants the order. Anything before then, whether it's joint house or a mortgage bond or savings, remains governed by your original regime. So after the change, from the date the new regime takes effect, if you are now married out of community of property, each party will, maintain their separate estate. But if they choose accrual, it will then only apply to the future growth in their respective estates. It's also it's more like drawing a financial line in the sand. Everything before the change stays under the old rules. Everything after then falls under the new regime that you would have chosen.
And when we talk about debt, not many of us like to share our debts, huh?
Yes.
we only find out when all has been settled and you realize, oh my goodness, my partner has been swimming in so much debt. Coming back to, the legal considerations, what legal considerations should listeners keep in mind when communicating with creditors when undertaking this process?
This is super important. If you are planning to change your matrimonial regime, your marriage regime, creditors must be notified. The court will not grant you the order to change your matrimonial regime if your creditors are not notified. Usually what we will do is send letters to the current creditors and inform them that, these two people are planning to get married out of community of property, either with or without accrual. And we'll ask that they provide us with letters of no objection to show that, they are not objecting to the proposed change. Would also request that clients provide full financial disclosure and do so honestly, because if they don't, there's no running away from the consequences of not doing a full and frank disclosure. Include proof of this in the application. The court wants to be sure that you are not changing regimes to hide assets or run away from the consequences of a debt. So transparency is key.
That's one thing I wanted to also, point out, because sometimes you find people want to hide assets, or both of you find yourselves as a husband and wife, you are swimming in so much debt, and now you decide, let's take out a portion and put it to the husband or the wife, so that if ever there's some form of attachment that has to happen to your property, that your other property will be safe. Well, I think let's just take a small break. But before we do, let's open up the lines. The lines are now open. If you would like to share your insights, maybe your viewpoints, or maybe you want to ask questions, the lines are opened. That's 086 000 2032. Or you can send us a voice note. Make sure it is audible and it's not more than a minute. That's 061 410 4107.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Catch the Tastemaster SA this Tuesday evening at 7:30 on SABC2 for a test of agility and creative flair as the contestants have to work in teams and learn how to trust each other. Guided by Judge Zolanene and guest chef Nathan Clark from the Test Kitchen fledglings, they'll need to stay sharp and think on their feet. Catch all the cooking drama on the Tastemaster SA. Tuesday evenings at 7:30, repeat Wednesdays at 1 and Sundays at 4 p.m. on SABC2.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
What percentage of these schools, these initiation schools, are effectively illegal or illegitimate and they needed to be shut down? What would you think?
My brother, you cannot have a percentage because some will be opening for the first time as we are going to the winter season. That is why we say a school that will not have been registered will not be allowed to operate.
The Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Valenkosi Tlabisa.
Ashraf Gada on SAFM. Find the podcast at safm.co.za. Call us on 086 000 2032.
Legal corner it is. Can you change your marriage regime in South Africa? And we're speaking to our attorney, Mary Jane Mpahlele, on the other side of the line. Mary Jane, welcome back. So the important things to consider then when deciding to undertake marriage regime change, what should those be?
There's no one-size-fits-all answer, but there are some key factors that one can keep in mind. And, some of the questions that you can ask yourself before you embark on the process. Financial independence. Do you want to protect your individual assets or keep things entirely separate? business risk. If one spouse runs a business, changing the regime could shield the other from financial fallout. Because when you're married in community of property, to some extent, you are liable for your partner's business debts. Most people don't know that. But yes, also considerations for estate planning. The new regime might make things simpler or more complex when it comes to inheritance and wills. You would know that when you are married in community of property, before we can follow the will, we have to give your spouse their 50% in terms of your matrimonial regime if you're married in community of property. So some people might see that as an opportunity to just separate things and be able to deal with their individual assets as how they want, to give them to whoever they would like to give them in a will. And the cost process. The process can be quite pricey as opposed to the antenuptial contract, which we do before any valid marriage. That's one thing that, it should actually be at the top, that you should consider the legal fees that are involved with doing a postnuptial contract. And, we need to do, when we do the process, we also need to do what I forgot to mention earlier, a notice in a newspaper to your creditors. Those adverts are quite pricey. You can't get one published for less than 4,000. Timing as well. It's much easier and cleaner to make the change while your relationship is stable and both partners are on the same page. But ultimately, it's a personal decision that should be made together and with proper legal and financial guidance.
Wow, 4,000 just to get, to gazette your process.
It's an advert in the newspaper, in your local newspaper, and in the Gazette. So in the Gazette, I think it's around 37 Rand. But if you ask for a quotation from most of the newspapers, they'll tell you just to advertise the notice of motion, you're looking at anything over 4,000.
Okay, so let's take a look at maybe the requirements if you were to just break it down, so, pivotal points that need to be kept in mind in case someone is listening to us and it's something that they've been entertaining.
Pardon? Sorry, I didn't catch that.
No, I'm saying the requirements once again, because I know that you've highlighted quite a bit. Just pointers, if someone is listening to you and I right now, just basic pointers to say, this is what you need to keep in mind if this is the route you now want to take going forward.
I would say each and every marriage has consequences. The matrimonial regimes that you choose have consequences. So, like I said earlier, it's a personal decision. You need to introspect and have an open conversation about finances, because ultimately the contracts are more to regulate the financial consequences of the matrimonial regime. Have that open conversation to say, okay, we have 2 children or we don't have children. In the event that our marriage ends, which would usually end by either divorce or death, what we would want the consequences to affect our individual estates. So that's a point of departure. That should bring answers to a lot of questions that couples might have if they are looking to change their matrimonial regime.
And roughly how long does this take? Let's say you've started the process. Are we talking a month? Are we talking 3 months, 6 months?
I would say, to be on the safer side, slightly over 3 months, because you need to issue the application, first consult with the clients, issue the application, write letters to all the creditors, and so that they can give you their letters of no objection. Some creditors, they can reply within a week or 2. Some might take even longer if it's a state-owned entity. Thereafter, you need to, you can simultaneously do the advert. Sorry, earlier I mentioned that it's in the Gazette, but it's only in the newspaper. I'm confusing the process with the deceased date. So yes, you need to do the advert and set the matter down. So to be on the safe side and to do things correctly without any rush and, risking doing mistakes, I'd say more or less 3 to 5 months at most.
So in a case where you are in so much debt, I have debt, let's say, with a bank. But for some unknown reason, I didn't think it was such a big issue. We've had a conversation before and we're on the same page, and they had given me the green light to say, no, go ahead. But all of a sudden they are contesting. What then should I do?
It would depend. When they do oppose the application, they are supposed to do an answering affidavit to say, for these reasons, that's why we don't want to consent to the change. So that would inform what you should do next. For instance, say maybe you're on debt review or whatever the case may be, you deal with it case by case.
Let's look at property, for instance, because I know that whenever in marriages, property becomes quite a niggling issue. In a case where one party then decides with the specific properties I would like to keep, or I've just decided when I married you, we did not disclose, or you just didn't do your right paperwork. What should you do?
With the property, are you asking what should happen to the property when they do decide to change their matrimonial regime?
Yes.
Okay. So in the post-nuptial contract, the parties agree as to who keeps which asset, who retains what asset. So, for instance, say we are married in communal property and we decide we want to change. In the post-nuptial contract, we need to state clearly that once the contract registers, I will keep the property in Midrand, for instance, and you will keep the one in Limpopo, and say maybe we have vehicles, we have to state that just to eliminate also the potential of conflict. The other party coming back to say, no, we didn't, deal with this and that and that. But that's how the assets are dealt with in the post-nuptial contract.
I was just looking at Natasha. Natasha, I don't know, the message has just disappeared there for a second. Let me see if I can just get Natasha's message back on track. But no, I'll give it I'll give it a moment because Natasha was asking a question. But advice from you. I'm entertaining this thought of changing my marriage. And I like when you, at the beginning, when you said you need to sit down with your partner. What if in a case your partner is just not in agreement?
You would have to show the court that, you deserve. You need to show the good reasons why the court should grant you the application without your partner's consent.
Oh, that's doable. That's good. Okay, I've got
it. It is doable. However, it's much easier when both parties agree. It's less expensive when both parties agree. Because if I do the application without my partner, then my partner will definitely oppose it. Then it becomes a litigated, matter.
And then lastly, I've got the message back. So it says, good afternoon, SAFM. How does it apply when a partner is in debt and uses money or in debt and uses money incorrectly by finding out he uses cryptocurrency 100%. This is not going to work with me at all. He believes a 50% of sharing is an option and does not strongly recommendedly when you feel there is not going to be option for going forward into a marriage or have anything to do with the relationship. That's from Natasha, and says it is safe to be single for me because my financial situation is not negotiable.
Oh, yeah, that is a good reason that I spoke about earlier to change your matrimonial regime. If the other spouse is being financially reckless and you don't want to end the marriage for some reason, but you would like a change in the matrimonial regime. However, you would still be confronted with answering for those debts. Absolutely. In the application, yes.
Mary Jane Mpahlele, thank you so much for chatting to us this afternoon. Legal Corner, it has been, can you change your marriage regime in South Africa? It can be done. It will most probably cost you here and there, but I suppose as both parties, if you are on the same page, it should not be a problem. Thank you so much, Mary Jane, for chatting to us this afternoon. And bye-bye for now. It's time for news.
Good afternoon, I'm Kolofelo Tefo. In the headlines this hour, Gauteng Police Commissioner Tommy Mtombeni says despite the province recording a 10.8% decline in the murder rate between January and March this year, multiple murders continue to pose a challenge for the police. 5 Walter Sisulu University students have been granted 500 rand bail by the Mthatha Magistrates Court in the Eastern Cape. The students are facing charges of public violence and malicious damage to property. And the African Union Commission has taken note of a recent proclamation by U.S. President Donald Trump imposing new travel restrictions from several countries, many in Africa. Details at 3.
You are listening to The Full Circle. This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives.
Side by Side. Good afternoon and welcome to Side by Side right here on SAFM, brought to you by the National Department of Health, Ilifa Labantwana, and the SABC Education. Today we're focusing on the early detection of eyesight problems in children. We had an insightful discussion on our drama episode yesterday on how important it is to keep an eye literally on our children's vision. From difficulty focusing to squinting or sitting too close to the TV, there are signs we should never ignore. Early detection can make all the difference in a child's learning, development, and confidence. Joining us now to unpack this important topic is Mr. Ndlela. He'll be helping us understand what to look out for, when to seek help, and how early support can protect your child's vision for life. Mr. Ndlela, thank you so much for joining us today. To kick things off, why is it so important to detect eyesight problems early in children?
Yes, thank you for the question. Detecting eyesight problems early in children is crucial because vision is essential for development as well as learning. Poor vision can affect a child's ability to read, write, and participate in classroom activities, which might lead to academic difficulties as well as social challenges. Now, detecting early allows for timely intervention, which significantly can improve the child's ability to prevent long-term visual impairment. So that's why it's important for early detection.
We often take it for granted, but good eyesight plays a big role in a child's development. Can you tell us more about why healthy vision is so important?
Good vision is critical for learning, as I've mentioned, as well as overall development of the child. Now, vision problem can hinder a child's ability to learn and to interact socially later in life, as well as affect their academic performance. There is therefore early detection will allow for timely intervention, such as corrective eye wearing, which is a form of intervention, also therapy, which can prevent long-term visual impairment and improve the child's quality of life. Addressing vision issues early in life can enhance the child's ability to engage meaningfully in education activities as well as in recreational activities.
Now, for parents and caregivers who are listening, what are some of the signs they should look out for that might suggest that their child is struggling with their eyesight?
So for our parents out there that are listening to us now, it is important that they should be vigilant for the following signs of eye problems. First of all, it's frequent. The child will display frequent squinting of the eyes, rubbing of eyes, tilting the head to see better, holding objects very close to the face, and not reacting to objects in front of them. So these are the signs that might indicate that the child has vision problems. And then sometimes also the child might complain of headaches or severe eye pain and having difficulty in concentrating. They might also display clumsiness. If any of these signs are observed by caregivers, it is important to have their children's eyes examined by a healthcare professional.
The signs that you just mentioned now are so easy to miss. Could you go a bit deeper and help us understand what they might look like in everyday life?
For sure. Let me start by squinting. By squinting, we mean this may indicate difficulty in seeing clearly and could be a sign of retrofractive error like short-sightedness or far-sightedness. Now, another one also, rubbing of the eyes. Excessive rubbing of the eyes can be a sign of eye strain or discomfort of the eyes. Now, head tilting is basically the child tilting his head, which might indicate that the child is having an issue with alignment or binocular vision. Another one I've mentioned is the one of holding an object very close. If a child consistently hold books close or screen very close to their faces, it may suggest a difficulty in seeing. Another one is also the children might complain of headaches or eye pain. These can be associated with straining of the eye or uncorrected vision problems. Another one is difficulty in concentration. Vision problems can affect a child's ability to focus on a task, leading to concentration issues. The last one is clumsiness. Now, poor vision can impact coordination and spatial awareness, leading to increased clumsiness. So these are the signs that we can observe in our daily livings.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ndlela, for joining us today. But before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts or advice for parents or caregivers when it comes to caring for their child's eye health?
Yes, my advice to the caregivers and parents that are listening to the program, it is crucial for us as parents to keep an eye on our children's growth and make sure that they have their full developmental screening at a local clinic within the first year of life, meaning that before the child reaches 1 year, all visits must be honored, the scheduled visit at the clinic. This will allow us to detect vision problems early, which is crucial for corrective implementation and might help the child in the near future. Thank you.
And thank you for listening to Side by Side, the show that supports you to give your child the best possible start in life. Brought to you by the National Department of Health, Ilifa Labantwana, and the SABC Education. Join the conversation with other caregivers on our Facebook page at Side by Side SA and look out for more great content. Join us again same time next week when we'll be talking about what to do when you think you're pregnant.
Asibambisane Zini na zini Ayikhomane Haratwarane Say and say Side by side.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives.
The land is their legacy, but in season 3 of Yellowstone, that legacy is under fire. Kevin Costner returns as John Dutton, fighting to protect his ranch, his family, and everything that can't be bought. More enemies, deeper betrayal, and the battle for the West, it's only just begun. Yellowstone Season 3. This land was won with blood, and it'll take more to keep it. Saturdays at 9:30. Starts 24 May. Only on S3. Open up.
After school snacks. A bag of chips or maybe some biscuits. Instant noodles for lunch. Ultra-processed products such as these may be high in sugar, salt, or saturated fat. Having too much of these products could lead to diabetes, hypertension, and heart disease. Our health is in danger. We have the right to know what's in our food. Demand front of package warning labels now. Sign the petition on heala.org. HEALA.org.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
I'm Michelle Constant. Join the JSB crew and I every Saturday and Sunday morning between 7 and 10 a.m. We promise to keep you informed and entertained with innovation, culture, cars, travel, life learnings, environment, and of course, your big fat juicy. Small stories, big ideas, massive inspiration. The Jet Set Breakfast on SAFM.
Living your best life on the Full Circle.
And if you've just tuned in, this is the last 19 minutes of the show. Well, at the beginning of the show, we spoke about family meeting and we spoke about the art of a successful marriage. What are the essential ingredients? We spoke to Dr. Marilyn Saunders, counseling psychologist and author. And also we had a conversation with Professor Samuel Manda from the UP's Department of Statistics and Project Director, University of Pretoria, launching the first ever Global Volunteer Index. And our legal corner, can you change your marriage regime in South Africa? That's the last conversation we've just had before we crossed over to the news desk, as well as Kids Corner, and we spoke to Mary Jane Mpatlele, an attorney. Now coming up, who is Morabo? And I'm going to be speaking to Gwen Ansel, Associate of the Gordon Institute for Business Science. And just to unpack, who is this particular individual? So, Morabo Morojele passed away last month. That was on the 20th of May at the age of 64. And today we thought, well, in honoring this particular icon, let's speak to those that know who this individual was. Well, Gwen Ansel wrote a piece dedicated to him titled Lesotho's Swinging Jazz Drama, who became a literary star. And he not only worked across multiple fields, but achieved impressively in all. And Gwen is on the other side of the line. And just to tell us who this particular icon is. Gwen, good to have you on the show, and good afternoon and welcome to the Full Circle.
Good afternoon, Bertha, and good afternoon to Full Circle listeners.
When we hear the name Morabo, maybe you can help us understand this icon. Who is he?
Well, the thing that was quite remarkable about the late Morabo Morojele was that he was many people in one. He was one of the most enormously multi-talented figures on the Southern African jazz scene, because not only was he a highly talented jazz drummer, he was also a development scholar. That was how he earned his living. And he became, slightly later in his life, a very highly accoladed writer as well.
And how should we remember him? I mean, dying at 64, that's pretty young.
Yes, it's tragically young. I actually, because of the way he behaved, because of his enormous energy on the stage, I actually thought before I learned of his date of birth that he might have been younger. But during that time, he achieved an incredible amount in terms of both music and literature.
And for someone who literally, I mean, when you look at his music and his career in music and where he's been, and then you look at the scholar that he was, I can only imagine how he tackled the two.
Yes, well, he himself said in various interviews that he had never thought of himself as a writer. I think before he got to London, he actually went to London in the late 70s, early 80s to study. And I think before that, he hadn't thought of himself as a drummer in anything other than a hobby context. But in London, he actually turned being someone who'd always been terribly interested in music from a drumming hobby into a career. He worked with some of the best exiled Southern African musicians on the London scene. He recorded with the Ghanaian saxophonist George Lee. By the time he returned to Lesotho in, I think, 1986, he was a fully fledged jazz drummer, and then he worked with a number of the best Lesotho groups, including Sankamoto, whom I'm sure many of your listeners have heard of. and began playing drums for visiting South Africans who in the mid-80s found Lesotho a much more hospitable and less repressive playing context than South Africa at that stage, still under apartheid.
Mm. And basically his passing moved you to reflect on his life and his work. You highlighted, being born in 1960, and you share his education. He's studying in London, which is absolutely fantastic. But what caught my eye, you used the term Renaissance man to describe him. How so?
Well, as I say, we tend to use the term Renaissance man, and these days I would much prefer that we use the term Renaissance person, but that's a whole other debate. But we tend to use that term very loosely for people who do more than one thing. But in his case, he achieved massively in all three of his specialisms, as I said earlier, in writing, in development scholarship and development consultancy work, and as a jazz drummer. And for people who still remember the old bass line in the 1990s, it was Morabo who was the rhythm backbone for the group Voice, with Marcus Wyatt and Andile Yanana and Herbie Swahedi and Sidney Mnisi, which was actually the group around which jazz at the bass line really developed and grew.
Mm. Him being a writer, he published novels, How We Buried Puso, Three-Egg Dilemma, made an impact in the book world. Maybe, I don't know if you could share some insight there?
Well, one of the things that struck me particularly about How We Buried Puso, which came as a complete surprise. I had known Morabo. I am a music writer, so I'd known Morabo as a drummer for a long time, and then this amazing little novel landed. And I think if we can draw a parallel with someone who also left us very recently, Ngugi wa Thiong'o. When Ngugi was writing in English, he made English the servant of the idioms and the mindset of a writer who actually was born in Kenya and whose first language was Gikuyu. In the same way, Morabo made the English in which How We Buried Puso was written the servant of the idioms of his native Sesotho. And that was one of the cadences, the absolute dancing musical cadences of the way he used language there. If anyone hasn't read that book, they really should. It is still available. He used both quotes from jazz, from Difela music, but also in terms of the language. And when he wrote his second book, when he wrote The Three-Egg Dilemma, he was apparently very insistent to his publisher that he wanted a speaker of an African language to be his English language editor, because he felt that no one else could capture the cadence that he was writing in and preserve that as the book went through the more formal editing stages. And I think that is very important, the fact that English is an African language as well as it's the Queen's language, the King's language over there in that other country now, and it can be made the servant of African writers. You have to be aware of that, and I think Morabo's writing was a really good example of that, in that the way he spoke was the way his native language and the way his thought patterns made him speak. He used English brilliantly, elegantly, but it was his English, not someone else's.
That's Gwen Ansell that we're speaking to this afternoon, Associate of the Gordon Institute for Business Science, University of Pretoria. And we've decided to put the spotlight on Morabo Morajele, Lesotho-born jazz drama, novelist and development. When we come back, we continue with the conversation, because I would like to just, touch on he lived in abroad, being in the diaspora. I can only imagine the experiences, but we'll find out when we come back. Let's take a small break.
This winter, escape the chill and find warmth in Limpopo, where golden sunshine meets cozy bushveld evenings and adventure never hibernates. Explore the hot water springs or unwind in affordable luxury at Serene Limpopo Wildlife Resort like Nailsplay, Dinyala, Makuya, and Lekhalamedzi. Explore Kruger, Marekele, Mapungubse National Parks, where winter is just another season of wonder. Discover ancient stories at Zata Ruins, Bakoni Malapa, Chate Heritage Sites this winter. Come closer to nature, to heritage, to warmth. Visit GoLimpopo.com. Your warm winter escape awaits. Hashtag GoLimpopo. Hashtag more to enjoy.
Every murder has a moment when it could have been stopped. Countdown to Murder takes you inside the chilling timeline from ordinary days to unthinkable crimes. Real stories, real people, and the final hours before everything fell apart. Countdown to Murder. Every second tells a story. Thursdays at 9 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
You are listening to The Full Circle.
And I'm speaking to Gwen Ansel about Morabo Morajele, Lesotho-born jazz drama, novelist and development, and he has passed on. Gwen, welcome back. So lately we have noticed or realized that borders are increasingly closing to foreigners, and here is an individual. Back then, he traveled, he lived abroad, and he's one of those icons that is recognized by his peers, the British peers. What do you think, maybe, I don't know whether you'll be able to answer this, what do you think would have been his take, considering the kind of environment that we are in now? He's from Lesotho, migrated to Johannesburg 1995, and he's lived abroad. To me, he sounds like a man who didn't think too much about the borders.
I think two things. One of the things that some of the memories of Morabo that have appeared online have pointed out was that he was very straight-spoken. He had a mordant, a very dry, sometimes cynical wit. And I think he would be a little world-weary, a little cynical about this notion now of foreigners. Morabo was an African musician. In London, he worked with the diasporic community there, which included South Africans, it included West Africans. One of his closest playing partners, both in London and later in Johannesburg, was the Ghanaian saxophonist George Lee. He had seen it all before, because life for exiled musicians in London was tough. I think he would have been very weary at seeing it again. And I think to some extent his understanding of the universality of the human condition comes out in his second novel, The Three-Egg Dilemma. He has created a setting which is recognizably has elements of Lesotho in it, but it could be anywhere. It could be South Africa after the July riots. It could be Yugoslavia. It could be Sudan. It could be anywhere. Those kinds of human issues and human problems occur everywhere, and we all share both the experience of them and the responsibility for dealing with them.
And then two things. I'm sure he must have gone through some difficult times in his life. Any that you most probably would like to share? And then, of course, we look at the bright side, which is the highlights.
Look, I knew Morabo as a music writer. I had some very illuminating conversations with him about the music that he was playing and that other people were playing. I did not know about his private life, and I'm really not in a position to talk about that. But I will say that being a musician in Johannesburg is in itself pretty tough. It was then in the 90s, and it remains so now. Gigs are few and far between, revenue is limited, expenses are high. And one of the things that trumpeter Marcus Wyatt said when he was remembering Morabo was the way in which Voice operated as, if you like, a collective, in that people shared their problems, shared their life stories, shared their issues, and actually were all in it together. And I think if you talk to many of the musicians who worked at the baseline at that time, you will find that environment. So I think being a musician is tough. It's not a life of ease. But on top of that, I think in Morabo's case, because of his work as a development consultant, I think he'd seen a lot of the hardships and sufferings of the world. And something that came across in both of his novels was that he was very sensitive to the way in which social upheaval hit upon women and the strength that women required, the resilience that women required to deal with that. But beyond that, honestly, it would be intrusive of me to speculate about elements of his personal life.
And just looking, at his musical background, he's performed with some of the greats, Andile Yenana, Zim Kawana, Herbie Tswayeli, a lot. I mean, these are some jazz artists that we regard highly. That's one aspect. And of course, being a scholar, being an economist is not child's play.
Indeed, no. And I think one of the things we can say is that everybody who worked with Morabo respected his skill as a drummer. He had a highly disciplined, classical, hard-driving, hard-swinging style of drumming, which everybody who worked with him really respected. And when you think about it, the drummer and the bassist are the backbone of any jazz ensemble, and he fulfilled that role superbly.
That's Gwen Ansell chatting to us this afternoon, Associate of the Gordon Institute for Business Science, University of Pretoria. Gwen, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you, and thank you so much for making time and sharing some insight about who Morabo Morajele was, and may his soul rest in peace. Thank you so much for making time.
Thank you, Bertha. Listen to the records, read the books. That's how you'll know who Morabo was.
Well, definitely do.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 104.4 FM in Hermanus.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Let's then talk about some of the issues that you had raised anyway with whoever attended that Scopa hearing on behalf of the Road Accident Fund yesterday.
There were many things. Let me just mention two, because this is important. We had raised an issue about the fact that none of the executives at the Road Accident Fund have been vetted. You will recall that many years ago, Cabinet took a decision that all government officials and heads of agencies and senior executives must be vetted to see whether they're fit and proper. At the Road Accident Fund, this had not happened in October last year, even though the chief executive misled us and told us that he had been vetted. It turns out this was actually not true.
Songezo Zibi, the Scopa chairperson.
Ashraf Gada on SAFM. Bertha Charuma on SAFM.
And Ashraf will be coming through on the other side of the hour. That will be after 3. But otherwise, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for sharing your space, our space, and sharing it together, and allowing us also to be in your space. And this has been the Full Circle, looking at family meeting, which was our first conversation, the art of a successful marriage. And we also spoke about the University of Pretoria launching the first ever Global Volunteer Index, as well as our legal corner. We spoke to Mary Jane Mpatlele, an attorney, and sharing some insights about changing your marriage regime in South Africa. And then, of course, our last conversation, which I've just ended a few seconds ago, Gwen Ansell chatting to us that she is Associate of the Gordon Institute for Business Science, University of Pretoria. And we're talking about Morabo Morajele. It's been good. It's been great. Thanks to my content producers. That's Ntabiseng and Ntosh, and my technical producer, Mondli. Thank you so much for driving the desk perfectly. It's 3 o'clock and it's time for news.
In the top stories this hour, murder in Gauteng still a challenge and AU reacts to US travel ban. Good afternoon, I'm Kolofelo Tefo. Gauteng Police Commissioner Tommy Mtombeni says despite the province recording a 10.8% decline in the murder rate between January and March this year, multiple murders continue to pose a challenge for the police. He cited incidents including the murders of 6 patrollers at Merimi Informal Settlement in Soshanguve. Mtombeni was briefing the Gauteng Provincial Legislature's Portfolio Committee on Community Safety on the fourth quarter crime statistics for the 2024-25 financial year.